How's it going, everybody? In the spirit of getting a video posted every single day since the Emerald Dream has come out, I am making this video in order to talk about some cards that I am not particularly happy about. This is less going to be a rant video, and this is more going to be a concise, observation about archetypes that I particularly don't enjoy and cards that I believe are still problematic, not only from the new set, as well as highlighting cards from this set that still might be a little bit problematic. So just to give you guys a little bit of confidence that I do know what I am talking about, I am currently sitting at rank almost 200, where I have peaked at rank almost 150 on my way to top 100 to try and get some tournament competitive points for the Hearthstone competitive ecosystem. Esports is back, baby. You should definitely be keeping your eye on that because a lot of players that I used to see back in like 2018 are back playing the game again. So there's a lot of hype in terms of esports, but I am starting to notice that the hype for a lot of cards in particular are starting to die down a little bit. You're starting to see people like Zeddy talk about how he wants to just rotate the StarCraft expansion, which I totally understand. A lot of these cards are kind of pissing me off, but the biggest thing about these cards that I feel like we need to talk about is the Tutor effect in Hearthstone, because there are a lot of Tutor effects, and if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know my opinion on Tutor cards. They can either be like a really fun way of creating, a support card for multiple archetypes, like Rotten Dryad, for example, in Warlock, the 1/1 that can draw a 7 mana minion or more. I think cards like that are absolutely fine. But when I start to draw the line is cards like when we get to the faction cards. There's one mechanic that I am just absolutely tired of when it comes to these decks, and that is for certain the draw to get even more cards that you definitely want in your hand guaranteed. I absolutely believe that one of the biggest issues with the Emerald Dream and with StarCraft right now is that a lot of decks can do the same thing over and over again, and I quite literally mean the same thing over and over again, because as soon as a Chrono Boost comes down, you already know that your opponent's probably going to have their Artanis. They might hit the other Chrono Boost as well. This is just one of those cards where, like, it really feels like a lot of times you get benefits by having less of the faction cards, so that way you can consistently draw the only card that matters. And then you have kind of like the opposite effect, where if we take a look at Location Warlock, for example, which is a deck I would highly recommend if you're trying to grind the ladder. It's a very good deck right now. We'll probably have a video coming out about this tomorrow if we don't make our top 5 decks video. But the reason why I'm pointing out this deck is because this deck has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Zerg cards in the deck. 8 if you exclude one of the worms. But it's just like, this deck, even though it has 9 of these cards, Nidus Worm just still feels like it is either going to draw your hero card or it's going to draw your consume for your Ultralisk Cavern, because you want to keep this card in the mulligan, you want to keep the spawning pools in the mulligan. So effectively speaking, this Nidus Worm is either going to draw the second one, it's going to draw consume, or it's going to draw the hero card, and this is just my biggest problem. Would Hearthstone come out with a card that says 3 mana, draw your hero card, reduce it by whatever, get a Starship, or like, there's just too much consistency when it comes to these cards, and this is the real reason why I'm getting annoyed with this, is because it's not just in Warlock, it's also available in Demon Hunter, in Death Knight, and then you have the Protoss cards being available in Rogue, Mage, and Priest. It's just, the issue that I run into, that I've noticed while I've run into these cards, is that I'm not mad that these cards are good in certain classes. I'm kind of mad that these cards are very good in almost all of the classes. The only reason why Zerg Demon Hunter and Zerg Death Knight don't really do very well is because they are completely outclassed by Hunter, for example, which we'll also get into in this video. Trust me, I have a lot to say about Hunter. A lot of it's not positive, but I really need to just put this out there because I really hope that Blizzard is going to do something about these faction cards, because they are completely overshadowing the mini set. If we decide to take a look at HS Guru, we can kind of see what people are playing. Location Warlock, Protoss Priest, Food Fight Warriors now becoming a thing that's being complemented by the Terran package very well. I might have a deck for this, by the way, but I need to get some stats with it. I'm currently 1-4 with it, but the archetype is it does look good. I just need to learn how to play it. But even like Protoss Druid, for example, this is just fancy Dungar, and now on top of the Dungar infuriating high roll that no one wants to lose to, you also have, you know, construct pylons into Chrono Boost and to get your Artanis, and it's like, yeah, I guess this deck runs carrier. Is this deck even that good, though? Did people win with it? People aren't even winning with it, but just looking at it, I just don't like it. I don't know what else to say, man. These cards, I know they haven't been here that long, but I just feel like I am so burnt out of these cards cards already because you literally see them 3 times as often. If this was a thing that was only in Druid, if this was a thing that was only in Mage, maybe I would forgive it a little bit more. But it's just to be honest, man, every single time I see a faction hero card, I'm rolling my eyes. Every single time they're drawing 2, I know exactly what their next play is going to be. I'm rolling my eyes. So it's just like, there's a lot of things that could be improved, because like Protoss Mage, for example, used to be a deck that was completely laughably unplayable, but now it's turned into one of the best faction decks in the game. I would say not as good as like Location Warlock by any means, but this deck is just, it just, people are starting to really get mad at like Colossus, for example. Even though I'm fine with win conditions existing, it's just the consistency of this deck just always having exactly what it needs, because it draws 2 specific cards instead of just drawing 2 cards. And having a 3/4 with charge for 4 mana, you would probably just play that outright by itself in a lot of circumstances, especially with like Rogue, where you're discounting the minion that comes out of it. That's another thing I'm upset about. I don't think this deck is on here. Okay, but yeah, Protoss Rogue. Protoss Rogue, when you play Artanis, if you've played a a Photon Cannon onto a minion and gotten value, you can Shadow Step the charged minions, and now they're just available for 0 mana. So it's like, some of these things are just way too consistent in my eyes, and I'm just really getting annoyed with it. But now that we've ranted about the faction cards long enough, because it's pretty much the same thing, just please nerf the draw 2. It really does. It really is the glue that keeps these cards together. I want to take a look at the meta and kind of give you guys my opinion on what exactly is going on here, because I am still hearing a ton of people complain about Armor Demon Hunter. And I really do believe that Armor Demon Hunter is not necessarily a power outlier, but it is for sure a sentiment outlier, and it is still one of the most popular decks. It actually is the most popular deck on the ladder right now. But to give a little context, this number was 25%. This number used to be 20% last time I checked on it, like about 2 days ago. Now it is 15% because people are figuring out what this deck loses to, and the big number one thing is that it just loses to Hunter. Hunter has completely used this opportunity to use Armor Demon Hunter's popularity to not only boost up its win rate, but its win rate was already in a pretty good situation to begin with, to where if we take a look at HS Guru in Top 1000 Legend, you are noticing a completely different metagame where Armor Demon Hunter is barely 50%. We're starting to see a lot more Nebula Shaman. I'm part of that problem, by the way, and we'll talk about Murmur here in a second. But you still have Location Warlock as like one of the best decks in the game. Even if we make the games minimum 100, we still have Location Warlock sitting at the top with the most amount of games. But then there's Discover Hunter, there's Zerg Hunter, there's Zerg Discover Hunter, there's Menagerie Hunter, and then there's Zerg Egg Hunter. Hunter is just everywhere, and it's really hard to figure out exactly what archetype it is, because a lot of the cards within its package are definitely usable throughout multiple of these archetypes. So, I mean, like for example, what's the difference between Zerg Hunter, and Zerg Discover Hunter? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm assuming the Discover Hunter doesn't run the Zerg cards, which I don't know if I agree with that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Hunter is absolutely slaying cheeks in Top Legend right now, and I don't hear anyone complaining about it. Oh my god. Armor Demon Hunter is all over the place at Diamond through Legend, and Hunter is also there, and Imbue Hunter being the 3rd most popular deck, Zerg Hunter not being that good, but look at that win rate, dude. If you look at the win rate, the freaking Hunter decks are still absolutely on top. I just don't think that the average player has really caught on with this yet, and I really don't know why. Everywhere I go, every stream that I tune into, there's a Hunter that's rolling you by turn 5. Granted, a lot of the streams I'm watching are kind of top 1000. They're, you know, players that are trying to go for competitive points. So maybe this is just an issue between me being competitive versus other people that are just trying to hit Legend because they're just trying to play the game. That very well could be a thing. So what is probably going to happen is that Armor Demon Hunter is for sure going to get nerfed. The Arcanite Defense Crystal is probably going to go either to 5 mana, or you can make the 5 mana demon that summons 4 drops summon 3 drops instead. If you absolutely want to kill the deck, you could go about that direction. But I kind of like the deck and what it can provide, but if it's going to be this much of a popularity issue, then something needs to be done. Now, this does not mean that Armor Demon Hunter is the only issue within Hearthstone. There are plenty of other problematic cards, and like I was saying with Hunter, Hunter is definitely one of those things to where one thing that really makes me annoyed about this deck in particular is just how similar a lot of these Hunter archetypes are. Discover Hunter is something that I'm absolutely fine with existing, but the biggest thing that is pushing this deck overboard is definitely the Seaside Giant. This is a card that 100% needs to get nerfed going into the next rotation, because not only is it turbo busted in Hunter, it's turbo busted in Warlock. I've seen mages try to make this card work because they have Tide Pools and the Forbidden Shrine. It's not nearly as good in that deck, but there's a lot of people that are winning games so easily with Giant that it's just not a meme anymore, and it needs to be dealt with. Another issue that I am seeing with Hunter is how easily Amphibian Spirit can absolutely roll a game due to the effect of the Stalker. Can't really see that deck right now, but oh, here it is, Egg Hunter. So you play a Nerubian Egg, right? If you play Nerubian Egg and then you give it the Amphibian Spirit, the way that this interaction works, if you were to play the Terrascale, it is actually possible for your Nerubian Egg in order to buff the 4/4. And even without the Terrascale in the deck, you can play Nerubian Egg into Amphibian Spirit, and if your opponent kills the egg, it'll summon a 4/4, and then the 4/4 will get the 2/2 Death Rattle, be a 6/6, and now it also has that Death Rattle. This deck is extremely sticky, and I don't necessarily believe that the stickiness is the problem. The only thing I have a problem with is how quickly this deck just builds up a gigantic board that is absolutely unkillable, because unless you're running Silence, you can't get rid of the Death Rattle, and unless you completely wipe out the board, it's going to continue to be a problem. I just find this deck to be more so annoying than anything else. Out of all of the Hunter archetypes, this is probably the weaker of all of the weakest one out of all of them. But the one thing that is absolutely just making me upset, the thing that is making me the most mad within Hearthstone, is just the simple egg hunt. And even like Imbue Hunter, for example. Even Imbue Hunter pisses me off because like this deck just kind of just sits here, does nothing, presses hero power. I play King Crush, ha ha ha, I win. Sometimes people play a Youthful Brewmaster, so that way they can do like a 2-turn combo. I really do not like that play experience, and if people don't like Armored Demon Hunter because it feels the same, Imbue Hunter is literally going to do the exact same thing, because the only thing that matters in this deck is King Crush. But one of the archetypes that is making me the most annoyed right now is just Zerg Hunter in general. Like, yes, it does fit very well within the egg package. It does fit very well with these death rattles, but I am just absolutely sick. I am absolutely tired of seeing seeing Parrot Sanctuary into spawning pools, summon a bunch of Zerglings, and then suddenly you have a potentially 1 mana to 2 mana Hydralisk that is just completely bombing the board, hitting you in the face, and then they can also summon Giants alongside this. This is just absolutely way too much. Hunter is one of my least favorite classes within Hearthstone because I personally don't like aggro. I don't need to be wrong or right here. It's just a personal preference. I don't like unga bunga decks that take no thought, that just, spam board and get rewarded for it. And I think that this deck absolutely needs to be solved. Some other play patterns that I feel like should be addressed are potentially cards like Food Fight, because I'm not gonna lie, this deck was something that just popped up on my radar yesterday, but I'm already seeing people on Twitter in particular saying that they do not like this Warrior deck because of what it can do with Briar Spawn Drake. I believe that I have a better version of this deck, but just roll with me for a second. What this deck is essentially trying to do is play Food Fight as quickly as possible, but you can also deny Demon Hunters, by the way. You can play Food Fight, go up against a Demon Hunter, play this card. They have a 0/4 Death Rattle that when it dies, it summons a minion from your deck. In this deck in particular, the only minion is your Briar Spawn Drake, and you can make copies of this card not only with Clutches of Corruption, but with your Succumb to Madness. So if you're going up against a deck that's just spamming a bunch of 1/1s, for example, like Imbue Mage, you are going to just summon this card out of nowhere by like turn 4. It's a 12/7, it'll hit a 1/1, it'll deal 11 damage to their face. They might kill the minion, they might play another 1/1, and then you just play Succumb to Madness, and then you just win the game automatically. This is a play pattern that I feel like is going to be a very drawn out, worn out type of combo, where it's very similar to like Grunter Hunter, for example. Decks that punish you for playing a 1/1 really don't feel that good to go up against, so Blizzard might be doing something to this. But in the same light, I feel like Nebula Murmur Shaman could definitely be in that same camp, because this is a deck that I feel like is still kind of emerging. People are still figuring out the perfect 30. I think my list is the perfect 30. Go ahead and check out the YouTube video about it. But this deck in particular is also toxic as hell, Again, because of Parent Sanctuary. Parent Sanctuary is a card that probably just needs to be dealt with one way or another because of it dealing with the Giants and also enabling this deck right here. If you're not going to deal with Parent Sanctuary, then you absolutely need to deal with Murmur, because the whole reason why this deck works, in case you don't know what's going on here, you play Murmur. If you have Parent Sanctuary on the field, you can then activate the Parent Sanctuary, which makes the Murmur effect of your 1 mana Battlecry minions, it turns them into 0 mana because you're discounting them by 1. So then you can just, press this location 3 times after playing minions. You can play Ysera in order to get even more mana. You have Bob into Refresh, or Bob into Draw is actually the Turbo Nuts, by the way. Bob into Draw into Marin or Malorn. There's a lot of nonsense that this deck can do, and you can potentially OTK out of it. But the most consistent way of winning with this deck is just going Murmur into Hagatha. Hagatha draws the Nebulas as Battlecry minions. You can then make them cost 1 mana or 0 mana, and then you just win with Elusive 8/8s with Taunt, that against board-based decks, they have absolutely no chance of winning. So this is another play pattern issue, and you could easily solve this by either changing Parent Sanctuary to either, 3 mana, or making it to where it can't go less than 0, or you can make Murmur more expensive in order to make this combo a little less consistent, because there's also another high roll with this deck, where if you have Zavis can discount Murmur by 2 mana, so then you can do the combo 2 mana sooner. So this is just another play pattern issue that definitely needs to be brought up. And then the last deck I want to talk about, Suck DK. I don't really feel like I need to talk all too much about this deck, but the main reason why a lot of people don't like it is because of the leeches completely sucking you dry, what seems to be a little bit too soon. So it's just one of those things to where there's a lot of really fun archetypes that exist within this meta. There's a bunch of imbue decks that I would highly recommend people check out. I personally really like Murmur Shaman, and there's even been like Octazari Demon Hunter. There's been a new Terran Warrior that's trying to play Hydration Stations that's not just scamming with the Briar Drake. There's a Yosandre scam deck that I am also invested in trying to figure out some more of. But the biggest issue with this expansion, to make this video very, very concise and to get to the end of the point, what is the point, Clark HELLSCREAM? The point is that these cards are fun. The point is that these cards are very entertaining to mess with. I've had tons of fun streaming, where in the past, I think 4 times I have streamed during this week, 3 or 4 times, I have streamed more than 10 hours. I have done 12-hour streams, 10-hour streams, because I really am enjoying this set, and I also do have a competitive goal that is keeping me motivated. But the biggest thing that really sucks is that a lot of these decks that we are experiencing completely choke out everything else, because manipulating HP, removing board while you're doing it, setting up an unkillable board through taunts, setting up a Murmur combo that you have absolutely no way of dealing with, or just getting Unga Bunga'd in the face by Hunter by turn 4, just completely lock out the main focus of this expansion, which is the imbue cards. The imbue cards are absolutely terrible. They have no spot in the meta right now, except for maybe Imbue Hunter as yet another scam deck. There's no imbue mage, there's no imbue priest that is viable right now. I've tried to make druid work, and druid just feels really bad into the DK matchup, and that is just my overall point. These archetypes are completely overshadowing everything else, because the idea of these decks is to remove tempo it's to remove your opponent's tempo while building up your own against a deck that will not have the answer. So I think that's pretty much all I needed to say about this update at the moment. We'll be streaming over at twitch.tv/ClarkHELLSCREAM if you guys want to ask me any particular questions, as well as live on YouTube. So we are putting in, our work throughout this expansion. I have 3 deck guides that I just need to edit, as well as a top 5 video, and I even have like a video essay about Kill Jaden that I really want to make, as well as some fun content. So I really do have a lot of fun content right now, but where my mind is focused on is getting this competitive finish, and I still have two days in order to do this. So come on by the stream if you guys want to support us on our roll to top 100 as we try to go into competitive esports. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. Let me know what you think is the most annoying thing within the Emerald Dream, because in my opinion, as much as Murmur Shaman sucks, as much as DK sucks, as much as Demon Hunter sucks, Hunter is still the deck I am having the most frustrations with at the moment, and that's just because I don't like aggro. I don't need to be right, I don't need to be wrong. It's my preference, just as well as it's your preference. So thank you so much for making it to the end of this kind of rant that I promised wouldn't be a rant video, and we'll see you on ladder. And also make sure that you buy some Rogue Energy, because we got 30% off with coupon code Clark69. Okay, bye!